Sir Galahad and the Great Torney. Word had reached Galahad and his friend the Yeti and his friend Igor that a lady had been taken prisoner by an evil baron. She'd been whipped away from her homeland. She was a young lady. She was about 17 or 18, so she still lived with her family, the lord and lady of the manor. This was disastrous, and Galahad was frustrated and angered. How dare an evil baron whip away a young lady? That was not okay. And being a noble, honourable questing knight, he set forth with his friends the Yeti and his friend Igor to rescue the lady. They travelled day and night. Galahad riding his mighty charger, Igor riding his little donkey, and the Yeti strolling because he had really long legs. Eventually they reached the land where the baron lived, and in that land there was a great tournament, and it was proclaimed from the banners high that whoever would win the grand championship of all of the competitions would win the lady as a prize. That's terribly wrong, said Galahad. That's not okay at all. So together, Igor and the Yeti and Galahad came up with a plan that they would enter Galahad into the competitions because he was, after all, a great knight of Albion, and he would compete for the lady's hand. But in the meantime, they would also work a plan to free her. There was 3 competitions. The first was a competition of wrestling. The second was a competition of sword fighting. And the third was the final and the most important, the great joust. So Galahad practiced. He was an able and capable knight, but this was so important he needed to practice with his friends. He practiced wrestling with the Yeti, a great big hulking brute. Hee, said the Yeti. So what am I going to do? Grab me, said Galahad, and they tried to wrestle and grab each other. And Galahad learned how to wrestle against an opponent that was much stronger than him and much bigger than him. He also wrestled against Igor, and Igor was nimble and quick. Despite the fact he was small, he was very easy to dodge around people. And then Galahad learned how to wrestle with smaller opponents. Then, in the sword fight, again, he fought against Igor, who was swift and nimble, and Igor fought with cunning and guile. And then he fought against the Yeti, and the Yeti had immense strokes, so he wasn't fast, but every blow hit so hard, Galahad was only able to block 1 or 2 blows before his sword arm felt numb from the impacts. And again, he learned how to deal with both opponents. And finally, they tested in the joust. Igor climbed on top of the Yeti's back, and the Yeti charged at him. He picked up a tree and used it as a lance. Now, Galahad saw his friends careering towards him and made his horse niftily dodge out the way and struck down his friend with the lance, knocking Igor flying and then knocking the Yeti on his back. They picked themselves up and laughed. But they had learned well. Then the day of the competition arrived. Galahad entered his first competition in wrestling, and against him was a quick and nimble opponent, a man, instead of carrying a long flamberge, a great 2-handed wavy sword, waving a line, like Galahad was carrying, he was carrying 2 swords, 2 short swords, and he was nimble and quick and fast, and he disabled every opponent against him. But Galahad had practiced, and Galahad had learnt against Igor how to deal with a dodging fast opponent. Eventually, Galahad won. Then, after the sword fight, I think there's out of order. So, out of the sword fight, he won the sword fight. Then, out of the wrestling, he was facing a giant brute of a man. He was almost 8 feet tall, huge and hairy and muscular. But Galahad had practiced with the Yeti, who was even bigger, so he knew how to defeat a stronger opponent. And last, he worked his way up the lists, and eventually he was in the final joust against a mighty warrior who was fast and nimble and powerful and a great, ginormous destrier horse, one of over 18 and a half hands. It came thundering towards Galahad. Crouched lancers aimed towards his head. But Galahad had learnt with his friends. He nimbly sidestepped out of the path of the blow, shoved forward his own lance, and unhorsed the opponent, who fell down. Galahad had won the competition, and Galahad was the champion. He went to claim his prize, but the Baron tried every sneaky trick he could not to give in. He said, but you surely can't be a knight, you're not from these lands. But I'm a knight from Albion, said the good Sir Galahad, producing his pedigree and scrolls and lineage. But no, it's illegal for foreign knights who hadn't registered 3 months before. But they had other plans. That's an outrage, said Sir Galahad, standing forward. The man jumped up. No, sir, you're an outrage. Guards! As the man sat down, as the Baron sat down, his chair crumbled and fell away, and all the populace laughed. He got up even more furious. How dare you? You're nothing more than a common animal. Like that animal, said Galahad, pointing behind him, and up reared the Yeti. Huge and growling and snarling, showing his teeth and fangs and growling and growling and growling. Galahad knew the Yeti Jeff was friendly. Igor knew the Yeti Jeff was friendly. But the evil Baron did not know that, and he was terrified and stumbled and fell and hid, and all of the populace saw the coward that he really was. And then they started chanting, Galahad won! Galahad's the champion! Galahad won! Galahad's the champion! And the girl was given to Galahad, and she was nervous and scared, but Galahad said, Don't worry, my darling. I am an honourable knight from Albion. I'm going to escort you back to your parents. But what about your scary friends, she said, looking at the giant Yeti and looking at the funny-looking eagle. Don't worry, they are good and kind souls. Even that had snuck in the night behind the pillars, and even that eagle had unscrewed all the bolts in the chair so it would fall, and even that they hid the Yeti behind the drapes, ready for that moment. They escorted her away to her home, but en route the Baron hadn't been done. All his men were surrounding, ready for the ambush, with sticks and clubs and crossbows. The Yeti grabbed the girl and hid her behind his great shield, his shield the size of a door, and as the arrows shot down, Galahad jumped on his horse, clicked his heels, and spurred towards them, and Igor smiled and produced his latest invention, an automatic repeating crossbow. It was armed with a hand crank, so you'd have to crank it on each time, but it would load a new arrow from the bottom on a gravity feed. It was an ingenious weapon. So when they were firing back at him, Igor was able to return 5 shots for every one of those. So it was as if there was 5 archers behind the barricade they'd created. The combination of his arrows shooting fast and the combination of Galahad spurring in with his horse fiercely had spooked them, and they were starting to waver. And then the Yeti said, Can you hold this, please? And past the young lady the door. She barely held up the shield. Then he drew his mighty warbow, the warbow that was twice the Yeti's height, an enormous weapon, and he pulled an arrow the size of a man, pulled back and shot. It was like a giant crossbow or trebuchet bolt, an explosion of earth in front of the men, knocking them flying. Shot after shot he sent, and they scared all of the Baron's men away. And together the 3 heroes escorted the lady back to her home. Her mother and father were so grateful for her return, and they'd done it again. They'd saved the day.